Well, the final episode of Loki just dropped hot, and it's amazing. It's mind-blowing. Everything that Loki needed. The finale really lived up to my expectations, and I'm fully satisfied with the ending. Marvel gave Loki the glorious purpose he had all along. The episode is aptly named Glorious Purpose, just like the first episode of the first season. Perhaps we can say it all came full circle. This was what Loki was destined to do. Let's put everything aside and get into it. The episode starts with the Marvel logo, as always, but this time in reverse. The frame opens at the exact spot where the last episode ended, with Loki time-slipping to where Victor is going to fix the temporal loom. We see Victor getting spaghettified, and then everyone in the room repeats the same actions as last time. But this time, Loki approaches OB and asks what they could have done differently. OB replies, "We took too long," so Loki tries again. Every time, he asks Victor to do it faster and better, over and over again. Then we witness a montage of Victor getting spaghettified many times. When Loki realizes this isn't enough to stop the loom from being destroyed, he tries to time-slip further back to when Victor first came to the TVA and met OB. Loki attempts to introduce them quickly and explain everything without OB's help. When Loki finds that it's still not enough, he asks OB how much time it will take him to understand everything about the loom. OB replies, "It can take centuries." Loki's face looks overwhelmed. The screen blacks out, and we see centuries later. This means Loki spent literally centuries learning about the loom, showcasing his selflessness and dedication to saving his friends. When we come back, Loki is doing all the technical and operational work in the control room. He wants everything to be perfectly done. One of my favorite moments is when Loki is typing something on the keyboard without looking at the screen or keyboard. This shows how many times Loki has done all this just to save his friends. After their efforts seem to work for a while, the system shows a failure. B-15 urges everyone to leave, but Victor explains that branches are growing at an infinite rate, and no multiplier can hold on to an infinite amount of timeline branches. Sylvie replies that it's doomed to happen always, and it can't be undone. Loki then time-slips to the moment when Sylvie came to kill He Who Remains. He tries to explain that she can't kill him, but Sylvie thinks Loki wants the throne, as she believed in the last season finale. Sylvie tells Loki to get out of her way, but he tries to stop her. She kills him repeatedly, and it's evident that Loki, despite having the power to stop her, is weakened by his love for her. After watching Sylvie repeat this act, Loki looks at He Who Remains and asks why he never tries to stop her, to fight back. He Who Remains picks up his tempad and freezes Sylvie. Loki gets scared and asks, what did he do? Surprisingly, He Who Remains asks if Loki hasn't learned to stop time yet. Loki asks how he knows about that, and He Who Remains replies that he knows about time slipping and that he is the one who paved that road for him. Loki doesn't express surprise at this revelation. He Who Remains tells Loki that he knows everything that's going to happen and that it was stupid of him to think that Sylvie could kill him and just let things go back to normal. He Who Remains tells Loki that if he doesn't believe him, he can go through this moment a couple of thousand times and tell him when he's ready to talk. He then unfreezes Sylvie, but Loki raises his finger and stops time. It's a cool scene that shows Loki has been through this moment so many times that even He Who Remains doesn't know about it. Loki asks, what makes him think this is the first time they are having this conversation? The face He Who Remains makes at this line is funny and looks like something has happened for the first time that he didn't know about. He Who Remains starts to explain what the temporal loom is. He says the loom is a failsafe that deletes every other timeline except the sacred timeline when overloaded. When the loom exploded, it didn't mean the end of everything. It meant there would be no multiverse without the loom. It can't exist without He Who Remains. But Loki and Sylvie want to give everyone a chance to live. He Who Remains also tells that TVA is just a damage control department, and it's very easy to rebuild. He tells Loki that his variants are already out there, and there are too many. Loki says he will find them and stop them. He leaves the choice up to Loki, but says if he tries to stop him, the outcome will never change, and it will always be the same forever. Loki, who has tried everything, nods and says he knows. He who remains suggests it would be easier for him to just kill Sylvie and stop her from killing him. But Loki doesn't do it. Instead, he time slips to the time when Mobius is talking to Loki during his first T.V.A. interrogation. Loki explains to Mobius that he knows everything about what's going to happen in this interrogation. He asks Mobius how to choose who lives and who dies, telling a story of a hunter who had to prune a kid once. It's a challenging choice for her. Loki asks how someone can live with that burden, and Mobius tells him that sometimes a purpose has more burden than glory. Loki shakes hands with Mobius before this time also gets vanished. Loki time slips again to the time when he brought everyone to OB's compound, and everything was falling apart. Just before Sylvie vanishes, he stops time. Sylvie asks what's happening, and Loki explains that it can't be stopped. This will only stop if she never killed he who remains. Sylvie comes forward and tells Loki that she won't support this decision of his. Loki tells her it's either the sacred timeline or nothing. Sylvie says it's not for him to decide, and he shouldn't be that god who takes away everyone's free will to live. She tells Loki he's just replacing one nightmare with another. This gives an idea to Loki, and he says, if we can replace it with something better. Then he time slips back to the temporal control room before the loom is destroyed. This time, Loki looks around as OB prepares Victor to go to the loom to fix it, but Loki goes to the loom instead. Sylvie sees Loki going and tries to stop him, but he closes the door behind. This is the most heart-touching moment of the entire episode, where Tom Hiddleston as Loki nails the acting. He looks at Sylvie and tells her that he knows what kind of god he needs to be for her. As the door opens, Loki starts walking towards the temporal loom, and the temporal radiation starts hitting Loki. Slowly, he transforms into his iconic Loki costume with a long horn crown and walks towards the loom. Loki uses his power on the loom, expanding it until it explodes. We see all the timelines now in the form of tree roots, like a spider web, spread around Loki. They are all dry and dark. Sylvie points out that the branches are dying. Loki starts grabbing each timeline one at a time, giving them a chance to live again. A giant door opens in space-time, revealing the citadel where he who remains throne awaits someone to sit on it. Loki climbs invisible stairs to reach the throne, while also grabbing the timelines one by one. Finally, Loki is covered in branches before he sits on the throne, holding all the timelines together. As the camera zooms out, we see that all the timelines are now in the shape of a tree. This shows that he who remains always wanted everything to be a circle, with no other branches occurring, so he could be in control of everything. However, Loki gives people the free will to live their lives while holding all those branches together. It's certainly the most godly thing Loki did to win our hearts. This was a significant moment for me to watch. Remember, Loki always wanted the throne his entire life. One way or another, he always wanted to rule. But in this moment, he would have never thought that he would be burdened with such a glorious purpose ahead of him. I was personally amazed and happy to see this. The screen cuts to black and then opens inside the T.V.A. This is not the T.V.A. we remember. It's a new T.V.A. made by Loki to stop all the Kang variants. Mobius tells B-15 that he's going to leave the T.V.A. In the end, we see Mobius looks at the life that was supposed to be his. Sylvie asks him where he will go, and Mobius replies that he will stay here for a while. We see a shot of all the timelines tangled into each other, and Loki's face appears, his eyes full of tears, before the screen cuts to black. Wow, what a finale! Loki truly exceeded all expectations, delivering a mind-blowing and satisfying ending. Marvel aptly named it Glorious Purpose, and it seems Loki's destiny was intricately woven into every moment. Tom Hiddleston's stellar performance, especially in the emotional scenes, left a lasting impact. The visual spectacle of Loki transforming the timelines into a majestic tree was awe-inspiring. The creation of a new T.V.A. by Loki to counter the Kang variants sets the stage for exciting future developments. This episode wasn't just the end, It felt like the beginning of something even more extraordinary. Kudos to the entire Loki team for this masterpiece.
Oh, that's hot.
Do it!
That's hot.